I'm Caleb,
And I'm Ross.
and today's 10-minute topic is equity and the difference between a $100 million and a $1 billion company. I'm starting our 10-minute timer now. So, Ross, we just had a conversation with Brian, one of our co-founders on Alpha Voice. He's been a part of 8 different startups, and he was telling us the difference between $100 million and $1 billion companies. Do you want to help share with the audience what that difference was?
Sure. So Brian started off by saying that if you're going to seek investment, every company needs to start with $1 billion vision so that the investors have enough incentive to get in. So for your A round, every company is $1 billion company. But as you go on and you find out what you're actually going to create and you pivot. Oh, do you want to go into the Panama Canal example?
Sure, we can go into that. We only have 9 minutes and 20 seconds
Okay,
left.
well, it's like building the Panama Canal. So when the people started to go through Panama, they came across a bunch of swamps and as they were building the canal, and all their workers started dying of malaria. So they became the best malaria doctors in the world so that they could prevent their people from dying of malaria and they could continue with the canal. Then they came to the mountains, and next they invented dynamite so that they could go through the mountains, and they became the best miners in the entire world. And they kept going. And then they came to crocodiles, they became crocodile tamers, and eventually they built a $1 billion industry, which was the Panama Canal. But at any point along the way, they could have monetized what they'd created. They could have gone and created an agency that went around the world curing malaria, or went around the world becoming miners. So whenever you start with that $1 billion vision, but a lot of companies along the way find something that is a $100 million vision that is got less risk, it's more easily attainable, and they will go toward that vision instead. However, I don't actually know what to say next.
If you want to do $1 billion business, you can still go for it, but you have to be the leader in your industry. You have to be the Uber. You're the front man for the industry, the LeBron James, and you take on all of the lawsuits people throw at you. You have a lot of competitors you have to deal with. You take on all the media risk. And that can be hard for a founder. All of your investors are gunning, they're pushing you, they're controlling you. And at any point they can tell you, nope, we're tapping out. You're going to take the $100 million check instead of the $1 billion check, even though we put you through so much more work and hardship. So it really depends on whether or not you want to settle for the quote lifestyle $100 million company, or if you want to do real business and go for $1 billion.
Not that a $100 million business isn't real business.
Yeah. So the next thing we talked about was equity. We've got 7 minutes and 20 seconds left. We're doing pretty well. So when we talked about the $100 million company, we talked about being a founder, getting equity, and Brian revealed some of the secrets of getting equity in a company. Mainly that the equity shareholders, the employee equity pool, is the first thing to be discounted, diluted when new investors come in. So if your company has a trajectory that just keeps going up to become a $1 billion company, your equity is fine. It's safe. That's an actual investment, it's a great investment. But if for some reason you don't meet one of your deadlines, you run out of runway and need to recapitalize and get more money, I don't actually know what recapitalize means. I think that's what Brian said. Then when people put in more, like your Series C, or people put in more money, the equity pool from the actual founders and the employees is the first thing to get cut in half. So you went from a 100x investment down to a 50x growth, which isn't really that bad if you're the founder. But if you're an employee and you only had $100,000 worth of options, then after it gets cut in half, now you only have $50,000, which if you were working for equity, say $100,000 cash and $100,000 in equity per year, you've been there for 3 years and your equity portion just gets cut in half, that can be really, really hurtful because it wasn't an investment, it was actually money that you were expecting. So what Brian said was treat equity as icing on the cake, not something that you expect to ever get. Make sure that you get paid a reasonable salary, whether that's $100,000 to work at a new startup. And then treat equity as icing on a cake. If you get it, great. If not, make sure you have a reasonable salary.
I just want to add to that in the A round, when you're receiving all of your money, Brian said that's great, and the investors are going to take, 10, 20% for a certain amount, probably less, because if you're evaluated at $5 million, you're going to take 0.5% for their $50,000. But then when you get reevaluated in the next round, those investors are actually mad that you haven't reached your goal of where you said you were going to be, and they have clauses in place that will double the amount of equity that they have to make up for the fact that you're not growing as fast as you thought you should have grown. So not only do you lose equity in your company because you need to put more out to take another round of funding, but you lose additional equity to the people that have already funded you, and usually that additional equity is what comes out of the employee pool of equity. So it's twofold. You're losing it in two different places, and that's how it goes down so quickly.
Yeah, dilution can really get at you. So it's only been 5 minutes of our 10-minute power hour, or 10-minute topic. What else did Brian cover in our discussion? Covered marketing. There was one topic that I wanted to cover, but I totally forgot what it was. Well,
I feel like this is where an ad would go.
Yeah, ad break now. Ross, you think, and I'll do an ad. So this talk is brought to you by Brian. Brian sells data on the internet. Brian,
I don't think you should say that.
No. Brian's a good guy. He does growth at major companies, can help your brand. He can get you in front of the audience that you want. Brian has a website. I don't know what it is, so we'll push you to his website when we find out what it is. That's all from Brian. Like I said, he's a great guy. I'd throw up a picture, but this is an audio stream, so you can just imagine a great guy. That last great guy you talked with, maybe
Okay,
on
you're
the side,
done.
Great guy. So Ross, what did you come up with?
So Brian also talked about greed. So if you are on the trajectory to make $1 billion company, great. But if you know that you won't make it to $1 billion, you can shoot for $100 million, and you won't make as much money, but you'll grow sustainably and your employees will like you. But it's greed that either takes you to $1 billion or makes your company fail. Brian said that he worked for a startup where the company really wasn't growing as fast as it should. Instead of using the $10 million investment they had over 3 years to grow sustainably, they tried to grow way too fast, burnt through their $10 million in 1 year instead of 3. And then instead of not taking more money and leveling off toward a $100 million company, they took more money, then they got diluted, then they knew they couldn't hit their goal, and they were forced to sell, and the founder was forced to sell the company at a price that no one should be willing to take, but they had to. And debtors get paid first, so when you burn through $10 million and you don't get that money back, you get paid first when you sell a company. And the last debt in is the first debt to get paid. So if you're the last person to invest, you get all your money back. If you're one of the people who invested at the beginning, like a seed round or family and friends, you have the last claim to debt. And then equity, you have no recourse in equity. That's not even an investment. That which
just
means that
disappears.
Even if you don't have the opportunity to make the decision to be greedy or not to be greedy, and you're an employee, you will still lose all of your money if the person above you, the founder, who's got all the right to make decisions, makes a wrong decision. So Brian says that it's really only worth being the founder in a startup, because otherwise you can basically just be circumnavigated and lose all of your stake. But, if you're learning like we're learning, and you're going to learn from someone who's already been in 8 startups, it's worth being in a startup no matter where you are. Yeah, the investment is Brian and us. The fact that every time I talk to Brian, I feel like I learn something new. He's had experience in 8 startups. He's been the first developer hire on a number of YC startups. And he understands the game. Okay, let's stop stroking this guy's ego. If he listens to this, Brian will probably not listen to this because he's got more important stuff to do. But he's an interesting fellow, and it's not just Brian in general. It's any mentor. If you're out there, it doesn't matter if you're 20 years old or 50 years old. Just find someone who knows more than you in a certain field, and don't ask them to be your mentor. Show them value first. Ask them what projects they're up to. Give them advice. And my best piece of advice is do free work for them. People love free work. It doesn't have to be actual monetary work at their company. Maybe you could try out a new piece of research that is on a project they're interested in doing but haven't had time to do. Test it out, see if it works, let them know the results, and then they'll probably pay you back in double or triple just by giving you advice and telling you what you should do next. So that's my little bit on mentors. I'm sure we'll do another talk about that. So we've got 22 seconds left here in our 10-minute topic. Any last comments or remarks? No, I think you said it. I just want to say that a mentor is worth more than gold. I paid $2 today to take a BART ride one station. I did not need to go on the BART.
Six.
I paid $6.
No, 4.
But I paid that money to get in so
2,
that I could hear excellent
1.
information.
Well, that's our 10 minutes up. Hope you found this podcast interesting. If you did, please like and subscribe on this channel and on YouTube, and we'll see you in the next one.